Have you ever noticed how people's behavior shifts without explanation? One day they're present, engaged, and consistent. The next they're distant, hesitant, or cold. But what if I told you that when someone starts acting differently, they're not just changing, they're revealing something? It's like a once-favorite hoodie, worn every day, filled with warmth and familiarity, until one day it doesn't feel the same. The fit is off, the fabric rougher, as if it was never yours to begin with. Or think of a phone that once lit up with messages, buzzing with connection, now still lighting up, but with delayed replies, half-hearted responses, conversations that no longer flow. That's how people change, not with loud exits or final goodbyes, but with subtle, quiet shifts. Until one day, you realize they're not the same person they used to be. Because while you're busy wondering what happened, they've already made their decision. They may not say it outright, but their distance, their silence, their hesitation, that's the answer. And the mistake most people make? Chasing for clarity when the message has already been sent. So why do people start acting differently? Is it guilt, influence, growth, or something they don't want you to know? Stay until the end, because the last one will change how you see people forever. Let's get started. Number 1, they're hiding something. Let's talk about one of the most telling signs that something isn't right, when someone suddenly starts acting differently. Maybe they become distant, more secretive, or hesitate when answering simple questions. The energy between you shifts. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel forced. And the worst part? You can't quite put your finger on why. Here's the truth. A sudden change in behavior, more secrecy, avoidance, or hesitation, often means they're hiding something. People don't just wake up one day and decide to act differently for no reason. There's usually something beneath the surface. A truth they don't want to share, guilt they don't want to face, or a situation they're trying to control. And instead of being upfront about it, they start pulling away, hoping you won't notice the cracks forming in their story. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Heraclitus once said, "A man's character is his fate." In other words, a person's true nature will always reveal itself, no matter how hard they try to hide it. If someone is acting differently, don't ignore it. Their behavior is telling you something their words might not. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Jake, was close friends with someone for years. They talked all the time, shared everything. But one day, Jake noticed something was off. His friend started responding late, avoiding certain topics, and acting distant for no clear reason. When Jake asked if everything was okay, the response was always the same. "Yeah, just been busy." But it didn't add up. The excuses piled up, and the vibe between them wasn't the same. It took time, but eventually, Jake found out the truth. His friend had been talking behind his back, trying to make moves that would benefit himself at Jake's expense. The change in behavior wasn't random. It was guilt trying to disguise itself as distance. So how do you handle this? First, don't ignore the signs. If someone is acting differently, trust your instincts. Second, watch their actions more than their words. People can say anything, but their behavior always reveals the truth. And finally, understand that you don't need all the answers to make a decision. If someone is being secretive, distant, or inconsistent, that alone tells you enough. At the end of the day, when someone's energy shifts, don't chase the old version of them. Pay attention to the new one. People change, and sometimes that change isn't for the better. If their actions make you question their honesty, don't ignore the feeling, because what's hidden in the dark always comes to light. Number 2, they no longer see you as valuable. Let's talk about one of the hardest truths to accept. When someone starts acting differently because they no longer see you as valuable. At first, it's subtle. They stop engaging the way they used to. Conversations that once felt effortless now feel forced. They become dismissive, uninterested, or distant. And the worst part? You can feel the shift, but you don't know why. Here's the truth. If someone changes how they treat you, it's often because they no longer perceive your presence as beneficial. Maybe they once needed you for support, advice, or company, but now they've decided they don't. Maybe they've found someone else to replace the role you played in their life. Or maybe their priorities have shifted, and instead of having the respect to communicate it, they slowly phase you out. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "Attach yourself to those who make you better." That means surrounding yourself with people who value you, not just when it's convenient for them, but because they genuinely respect and appreciate who you are. If someone only values you when they need something, they never truly valued you to begin with. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Daniel, had a friend who used to be like a brother to him. They hung out all the time, shared life updates, and supported each other. But as time passed, Daniel started noticing a change. His friend became less responsive, barely reached out. And when they did talk, it felt rushed, like Daniel was just another item on his to-do list. At first, Daniel thought maybe life was just getting in the way. But then he noticed something. This friend still had time for other people. He still made an effort for certain relationships. And that's when it hit Daniel. It wasn't about being busy. It was about priorities. His friend simply no longer saw him as someone valuable enough to make time for. So how do you handle this? First, stop making excuses for their behavior. If someone values you, they will show it. Second, accept when a connection has run its course. Not every relationship is meant to last forever, and forcing it will only drain you. And finally, shift your focus to people who truly value you. Attach yourself to those who uplift you, appreciate you, and don't make you question your worth. At the end of the day, if someone starts acting differently and treating you as if you don't matter, believe them. You don't need to beg for a place in anyone's life. Your value isn't determined by their recognition of it. It's determined by how you see yourself. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, they're influenced by someone else. Let's talk about one of the biggest reasons people start acting differently. They're being influenced by someone else. Maybe they were once close to you, consistent and genuine, but then, suddenly, something shifts. They start thinking differently, behaving differently, even treating you differently. It's subtle at first. Missed calls, changed priorities, or a new level of distance. And if you look closely, you'll notice a pattern. Someone else has entered their life, and that person is shaping how they see you. Here's the truth. A new friend, mentor, or romantic partner can completely change a person's mindset, for better or worse. Maybe they've met someone who feeds their ego and convinces them they don't need you anymore. Maybe they're listening to opinions that plant doubt about your role in their life. Or maybe they're trying to fit into a new social circle, one that requires them to distance themselves from who they used to be. The reality is, people are heavily influenced by those they surround themselves with, and sometimes that influence can cause them to drift away from you. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Aristotle once said, "We become what we repeatedly do." That means the people someone surrounds themselves with, the conversations they engage in, and the beliefs they adopt will ultimately shape who they become. If someone starts changing because of external influence, It's not just a phase. It's a reflection of where they're choosing to direct their energy. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Ryan, had a best friend for years. They had a strong bond, always supporting each other through life's ups and downs. But then, his friend got into a new relationship. At first, Ryan was happy for him, but over time, he started noticing changes. His friend stopped reaching out as much, started cancelling plans last minute, and when they did talk, the energy wasn't the same. Eventually, Ryan learned that his friend's new partner didn't like the idea of him having close friendships outside the relationship. Slowly but surely, that influence changed everything. His friend wasn't distancing himself because he wanted to. He was doing it because someone else convinced him to. So how do you handle this? First, accept that you can't control their influences. If someone is easily swayed by others, that's a reflection of their own lack of independence. Second, pay attention to consistency. A real connection doesn't get tossed aside just because someone new enters the picture. And finally, know when to let go. If someone is so easily changed by external influence, they were never as solid as you thought. At the end of the day, the strongest people are those who stay true to themselves, no matter who enters their life. If someone drifts because of another person's influence, don't chase them. Let them go, and trust that the right people, those who value you for who you are, will always remain. Number 4, they feel guilty about something. Let's talk about one of the most revealing shifts in behavior, when someone starts acting differently because they feel guilty. You may not know what they did, but suddenly, they're not the same. Maybe they become overly kind, going out of their way to please you. Or maybe they do the opposite, withdraw completely, avoiding eye contact, conversations, or even your presence. Either way, something is off, and deep down you can feel it. Here's the truth. Guilt makes people act strangely, either through excessive kindness or complete withdrawal. When someone has done something they're ashamed of, they struggle to act normal around you. Some try to compensate by being overly nice, hoping to ease their conscience without ever admitting their mistake. Others distance themselves because facing you reminds them of what they've done. They convince themselves that avoiding you is easier than owning up to their guilt. But in both cases, their actions tell you everything you need to know. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "He who is guilty flees when no one pursues." That means a guilty conscience doesn't need to be confronted to feel exposed. It reveals itself through avoidance, nervousness, or sudden changes in behavior. If someone is acting differently without explanation, pay attention. Their guilt may already be speaking louder than their words ever could. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Lisa, had a close friend who suddenly started acting strange. They used to talk daily, but out of nowhere, her friend became distant. No arguments, no misunderstandings, just a shift in energy. When Lisa reached out, the responses were short, dismissive. But then, oddly enough, her friend would randomly check in with extra enthusiasm, as if trying to make up for something. Lisa later found out that this friend had been saying things behind her back, things she knew Lisa would be hurt by if she found out. The guilt of her actions made her act unpredictably, sometimes overly nice, sometimes completely distant. She wasn't avoiding Lisa, she was avoiding her own shame. So how do you handle this? First, don't ignore the signs. If someone is acting guilty, chances are they are. Second, don't force them to confess. People will either own up to their mistakes or they won't. and their silence is its own kind of answer. And finally, understand that guilt is their burden, not yours. If someone wronged you, they are the ones who have to live with it. You don't need to chase closure or fix their discomfort. At the end of the day, guilt is a weight that people carry, whether they admit it or not. If someone starts acting differently and their behavior doesn't make sense, trust the energy shift. Because when someone is guilty, their actions will always reveal the truth, even when their words don't. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. They've outgrown the relationship. Let's talk about one of the most painful but natural reasons someone starts acting differently. They've outgrown the relationship. Maybe they don't seem as engaged in conversations anymore. Maybe they don't reach out like they used to. Or maybe they've simply stopped prioritizing the connection altogether. No argument, no betrayal, just distance. And the hardest part? They're not upset. They're not angry. They've just moved on. Here's the truth. Sometimes people drift away not because something went wrong, but because they're evolving. Growth can create space between two people who were once inseparable. As priorities shift, as perspectives change, the connection that once felt effortless can suddenly feel forced. And when that happens, there's nothing you can do to stop it, because this isn't about you. It's about them stepping into a new version of themselves that no longer aligns with the past. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Change is nature's delight." Life is meant to evolve, and people are meant to grow. To resist change is to fight against nature itself. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Some people enter your life for a season, to teach you something, to walk with you for a while. But when their growth takes them in a different direction, trying to hold on to them only prolongs the inevitable. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Ethan, had a best friend since childhood. They did everything together, always talked about their future, always believed they'd stay close forever. But as they got older, things changed. Ethan pursued personal growth, new interests, and a different path. His friend, on the other hand, stayed exactly where he was, same routines, same mindset, same outlook. Slowly, the connection between them faded. The conversations felt different, the meetups less frequent. It wasn't about a falling out. It was about growth moving them in opposite directions. Eventually, Ethan realized something. Holding on to a relationship that no longer fits is like wearing clothes that no longer fit. You can force it, but it won't feel right. So how do you handle this? First, accept that growth sometimes means letting go. You don't have to hate someone to outgrow them. Second, be grateful for the role they played in your journey. Just because they're no longer part of your future doesn't mean they weren't meaningful in your past. And finally, trust that life will align you with people who match your current level of growth. As you evolve, new connections will form, ones that feel effortless, aligned, and meant for where you're going next. At the end of the day, not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that's okay. When someone starts acting differently because they're growing, don't take it personally. Let them go with grace and trust that the right people will always walk alongside you at the right time. Number 6. They're resentful but won't say it. Let's talk about a shift in behavior that's hard to spot at first, but impossible to ignore once you do. When someone starts acting distant, cold, or passive-aggressive, but never tells you why. The energy changes. Their responses become shorter. The warmth in their tone disappears. And the worst part, they won't admit anything is wrong. Here's the truth. If someone suddenly becomes cold or dismissive, they might be holding on to resentment without expressing it. Instead of having an open conversation, they bottle up their emotions. Instead of addressing the issue directly, they show it through subtle actions, ignoring your messages, avoiding deep conversations, making sarcastic remarks, or acting indifferent when they used to care. Their silence is the message. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus once said, "Speak only when necessary. Silence reveals more than words." Meaning, what people don't say often tells you more than what they do. If someone is acting differently but refuses to communicate, their behavior is speaking louder than any explanation they could give. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, had a friend who started acting strange. They used to talk every day, but suddenly this friend became distant. When Sarah reached out, the replies were slow and unenthusiastic. When they met in person, her friend seemed disengaged, almost like she didn't want to be there. Sensing the shift, Sarah asked, "Is something wrong?" And the answer? "No, everything's fine." But it wasn't. Months later, Sarah found out her friend had been harboring resentment over a situation that had happened long ago, something Sarah hadn't even realized was an issue. Instead of talking about it, the friend let the resentment build, slowly poisoning the friendship until it collapsed under the weight of unspoken emotions. So how do you handle someone who is resentful but won't say it? First, don't force them to talk. If they aren't ready to communicate, pushing them will only make them withdraw further. Second, pay attention to their behavior, their silence, their energy, their lack of enthusiasm. It all tells a story. And finally, don't take responsibility for their unspoken feelings. If someone chooses to suppress resentment instead of addressing it, that's their burden to carry, not yours. At the end of the day, healthy relationships thrive on open communication, not silent grudges. If someone refuses to express what's wrong but continues to treat you differently, don't chase clarity where they refuse to give it. Because in the end, you can't fix a problem they won't admit exists. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply. Number 7. They're struggling internally. Let's talk about a shift in behavior that often has nothing to do with you. When someone starts acting differently because they're battling something internally, maybe they've become distant, quieter, or less engaged in conversations. They cancel plans more often, seem lost in thought, or don't react the way they used to. At first, you might wonder if you did something wrong, but the truth is, not every change in behavior is about you. Here's the reality. They could be dealing with personal battles that they aren't ready to talk about. Life hits people in ways we don't always see. They might be struggling with stress, loss, self-doubt, or emotional pain that they don't know how to express. Instead of opening up, they withdraw, not because they don't care about you, but because they're carrying something too heavy to share. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Plato once said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." That means even when people seem distant, cold, or different, they might be fighting something unseen. Instead of taking their change personally, try to lead with understanding. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Jake, noticed his best friend Chris suddenly pulling away. They used to talk daily, but now Chris barely responded. When they did meet up, he seemed distracted, not his usual self. At first, Jake assumed Chris had lost interest in the friendship, but instead of jumping to conclusions, Jake decided to check in differently. Instead of asking, "Why are you being distant?" he simply said, "Hey man, I don't know what's going on, but if you ever need to talk, I'm here." A few weeks later, Chris finally opened up. He had been dealing with intense personal struggles and didn't want to burden anyone with them. It was never about Jake. It was about Chris fighting a battle he wasn't ready to share. So how do you handle this? First, don't take their behavior personally. If someone is struggling, it doesn't mean they value you any less. Second, give them space while letting them know you're there. Sometimes people need time before they're ready to talk. And finally, approach them with kindness, not pressure. A simple, "I hope you're doing okay, let me know if you need anything," can mean more than you realize. At the end of the day, everyone is fighting battles we can't see. If someone is acting differently, don't assume it's about you. Lead with patience, offer support, and remember, sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there, even when they're not ready to let you in. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights.